Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, Everyone's a Critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all your social media outlets. Not all of them, just those 3.5. We're not on LinkedIn. No,
I am.
Well, the podcast is, and I'm on it as well. We're not on TikTok. I don't know. I mean, I am, but not with nothing on it. Just making sure my daughter's not being stupid is all. But yeah, Critics Pod is our handle. Subscribe or like us at all those platforms. And then our podcatchers, Spotify, Alexa, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, all your podcatchers, all of them. Alexa, I said that one already. Ghana, YouTube. I'm rattled as hell, so forgive me. It's been a weird week. But you know where to find us. So listen to the show, rate the show. We'll read reviews on the air if we see them. And then YouTube, click on the little bell to get notified. We have our Patreon page at patreon.com/criticspod. That's the best way to help support the podcast. We also have our TeePublic page.
Where you can get that shirt that Bob is wearing right there.
Yes, my son's like, what does censored mean?
I'm glad that's the part he's looking at.
Yeah.
The Josh Tribute t-shirt.
Yeah, the Josh Tribute shirt. But that's at ihatecritics.net. There's a little TeePublic page up in the right-hand corner. And I think if you were to search Everyone's a Critic podcast, movie review podcast, Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast at TeePublic, our stuff pops up as well. Or you can just like type in Willem Dafoe's dick or Batman versus Superman or something like that. It's
Batman versus Jesus.
Batman versus Jesus, my fault. I had that on, was it last week I wore that?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's our best of episode, which usually we just combine with another episode, but because of a pandemic, we're just going to do a full-blown best of 2020, best of 1990. And we'll start with our top 10 movies from 2020. I'm assuming you want me to go first, since my list is probably nowhere near as good as yours.
Go right ahead.
Let's see. Man, this is hard. I have two lists next to each other, and they're different, and I'm like, which one do I want to go with? Let's go with... it's First Cow. First Cow is my number 10. A24 movie. I don't know how many A24 movies I saw this year. Not many, unfortunately. But
yeah, they adjusted their schedule a lot this year and weren't able to release everything that they wanted to release. Yeah,
but First Cow it's one of those fantastic movies for movie nerds. And I think I talked about it on the podcast. When you describe it to somebody else, they probably roll their eyes and would never watch that movie. But quite frankly, it's very watchable. It's so much more than just, two guys stealing milk from a cow and then getting killed for it. Spoiler alert that they tell you in the first 2 minutes. But it's just such a well-made movie, so well acted. This amazing score, looks great. And the hard part for me is that, should this be number 1? Should this be number 20? All these movies are so close because the environment I watched them in was at home. And that does affect the way, you end up ranking movies. And I like this one a lot. I don't know. I wish I saw it in a theater.
I'll have more to say about that movie later on in my list.
Because you probably have better environments. All right, go ahead. Your number 10?
My number 10 is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It's Charlie Kaufman's movie that I was desperately have been intimidated by. I wasn't sure what to say about this movie, so I didn't actually get to write about it because I was worried constantly about what to say about this movie. It's so dense and so thoughtful and so unique. And the performances by Jesse Buckley and Jesse Plemons are two of the most complex and difficult performances of the year by any actors. And Obviously Charlie Kaufman, he does this. This is what he does. He makes these types of movies. And I think this is the most Charlie Kaufman movie yet, in terms of just being something that is just so inside itself. It's so up its own butt, and yet at the same time, so fucking watchable. And you could go down so many different alleyways with this movie and explore so many different references. I mean, this movie should come with a reference guide. That's it took me like 3 times to realize that Jessie Buckley's character doesn't actually exist. She's not a real thing. She's entirely the invention of Jesse Plemons' character, and I had no idea until the 3rd time that I watched the movie, and it finally clicked with me. And that's just one of the many reasons why I haven't written about this movie, because it is that dense and intimidating, and yet I can't fault it. It's damn brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. I think the main reason it doesn't make my list is just a simple fact because of it's intimidating, but I don't realize it's intimidating, so I've just kind of moved on. So, I haven't gone back to it, and again, you're back to the environment that we have to watch these things in. But I enjoyed it the first time, and it was fun to talk about when we talked about it, and now hearing you talk about it again and adding another layer to it that I didn't think about that now makes it intriguing. But I don't know. I just don't know how often I'll go back to it like I would like the John Malkovich movie and the adaptation and whatnot.
I mean, yeah, Eternal Sunshine is still my favorite Charlie Kaufman movie, and I even like Synecdoche in New York as much as this, but I think this one is really his most the most freedom I think he's had in making a movie, even more so than Synecdoche.
Awesome. My number 9 is Let Them All Talk. Probably should be higher on the list, but I'm not the demographic generally for a movie like this. But it's something that you'd never think I would like. It's not for me. It's just 3 old ladies sitting around talking. Sometimes over absolutely nothing. Sometimes just playing games. I mean, there's a lot of just downtime that they make so entertaining. That it just kind of caught me off guard, similar to movies like Little Women from prior years and Lady Bird, just movies that you don't think are going to really speak to you, and then they end up speaking to you. And this was definitely that shocking movie of the year. And it's always fun to talk about how overrated Meryl Streep is, but she's really not. I mean, well, she isn't. No. She is because she gets the attention. But,
even for a bad performance, she can still get good notices.
Right. But she's still that good when she is, and this is just it's so amazing. It literally is, if you were to say, Meryl Streep read from the phone book and it was that good, I mean, and it was entertaining. That's kind of what this movie is in some ways. But Steven Soderbergh, on top of that, the way he ties it all together, and just the watchability is ridiculous. And then Lucas Hedges, just a kid who is not messed up since I've known who he is. Yeah. So, just everything about this movie is great, and you're probably going to talk about it later too, I'm guessing.
Actually, it's just outside my top 10. I love this movie, though. I really do. I think it's some of Soderbergh's best work, and it is an insanely watchable movie. I really do enjoy it. But there were a bunch of other movies that actually, when I sat down to think about it, hit me a little bit harder.
Nice. What do you got for number 9?
My number 9 is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And this is one of the reasons why Let Them All Talk didn't make my list, probably, was because I didn't expect to put this one on the list. But after a while, I was still feeling I could still hear Chadwick Boseman's voice in my head. I could still feel that blistering gaze of Viola Davis burrowing into me. Like, as if I don't get a Coke, I feel like I have to get her a Coke right now, just thinking about it. It's such an indelible performance, and truly the power of both of those performances. You obviously, Chadwick Boseman has sort of the poignance to him because he's passed away and we're not going to see his work again, and that certainly adds a layer to this that is not in the movie, but what we're bringing to it undoubtedly. But you can still, even with that, the power is undeniable. And then you've got Viola Davis, who is matching him in that power. And, you've got his monologues, which are just belted to the sky. I mean, it's just with all of the power and emotion that he has. And then hers are just these controlled, like she could just murder you with words and barely lift a finger while doing it. Like she is just so intimidating and so insanely brilliant. It made this movie stand out to me in an unexpected fashion. I was thinking, I wrote about it about a month after I saw it, and really kind of realized just how hard it hit me.
Yeah, it's funny on the two lists I put together, because I could not get set. I had the top 3 preset, but everything else it kept rearranging, and I had this at number 9 and I had this at number 8. So I obviously using the list of 8. I love this movie too. The performances alone probably would have put it on the list, but it ends up being a fantastic movie on top of that. But the performances are so good, and I mean, they disappear into the role. Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman are, I mean, at this point, they're A-list actors, so you know who they are, and you don't see Black Panther on the screen. You don't see, Viola Davis always disappears into a role, but they just disappear more than ever, and then you throw in the fact that, yes, he's passed. That does make it more powerful, but we would have been singing its praises whether he was still here or not. That's the other thing.
True.
And, if he won an Oscar, I would not be upset. He's really, really good in this, and she's really, really good in this. And it's on Netflix, and I highly recommend checking it out because it's.
If he gets nominated or wins an Academy Award, if anybody says that this has anything to do with his passing, they're idiotic, because he absolutely would earn this either way. I mean, he's just brilliant. I mean, he talks about shoes for about 6 minutes, and it's riveting.
I mean, this is probably the best acting of his career, and he's a great actor. I mean, yeah. I can't think of, he's been great in a lot of things, but this one is just so, I don't know, this would have been talked about regardless. And then just the ending, when all of a sudden, all those white people playing their music, and I don't know. It's just such a great movie. I really liked it, and it was really powerful, and I highly recommend checking it out. And again, another watchable movie. It's not just a straight-up art house movie. I think the average audience is going to enjoy this. I mean, if you're a fan of Black Panther, give this a shot. I think you'll enjoy it. I mean, it's not like Black Panther at all, but it's watchable enough that I think anybody could enjoy it. Mm-hmm. What do you have for number 8?
My number 8 is a movie I don't think you got to see because I think it's still only in theaters right now. Promising Young Woman, starring Carey Mulligan and directed by Emerald Fennell. A very challenging movie about a woman who goes out to bars at night and gets picked up by guys pretending to be super drunk and then coming to essentially at their apartment when they try to have sex with her and basically just shaming these men into humiliation, and based off of a certain kind of something that's kind of wrong with her, but also this sort of sense of justice that she has that is expressed in this very unique fashion. This is a movie that reveals not her so much as it does you and how you react to her, and that is what's really challenging about this in this environment when we're all thinking about Me Too and watching our step and what we say and what we do. This movie forces you to confront yourself and how you feel about what she's doing. And the more you sit there, you try and parse what it is that she's doing and try to give it meaning, the more the movie just kind of pokes a finger at you and says, is that what it's really about? Is that what it's really about? And you end up kind of questioning yourself and your own motivations. And that I found to be exciting about this film. And I really dig it a lot even more. The further I get away from it, it gets even better for me. And it's even probably the best work of Carey Mulligan's career. And that's saying a lot because she's done a lot of good stuff. She was in Llewyn Davis, and she was great in that movie in a relatively small role, but still very, very good. She's an amazing actress, and this is the best work of her career.
It's definitely the movie I'm most excited about seeing. I love when the movie does point the finger back at you. And I guess I'll ask a question just because I'm curious, and this is not trying to catch you like a I'm stumping you on something. It's an honest to God question. Like, to me, a movie like The Joker does the same thing. What is different about this one? And I mean, because sometimes when you point the finger, you're not taking a side either. You're just kind of fucking with the audience. And maybe it's my interpretation of the Joker. Maybe that's not there at all. But something like that, where we've had disagreements in movies. What is difference about those movies versus this?
I think Joker is much more empty, like in terms of, I don't necessarily feel like it really points a finger at society. I think it's filled with a lot of logical holes. The more I think about that movie, the more I find things that are, wrong with it just in terms of plotting. But I think there's just an internal emptiness to Joker that is not here. There is not an emptiness here. There is a strong, filmmaker's voice behind this. So even as it is pointing a finger at you and forcing you to ask questions about yourself and about how you feel about this in a similar way, it's not doing so without having its own opinions.
Okay. And to me, that makes it that much stronger of a movie and makes me that much more excited. I would just, for the mere conversation, wanted to ask. Wasn't trying to.
No, it's a good question.
Wasn't trying to do the Sarah Palin gotcha moment. Sorry, I'm reading Obama's book and I just got past that part. Let's see, which list was I on? Okay, let's go. Miss Light, White Light.
Yes. All right.
This was fun. I mean, in a weird way. Not fun's maybe not the right word, but this is a weird movie that is so intriguing about. You'll probably do a better job of explaining it, but the protagonist is she can't connect with anybody unless you're dying, and that's like her secret superpower skill. So her job is just to comfort those when they're dying. And along the way, she finds someone who's not afraid of dying, and she's stumped and can't figure it out, and it drives her insane. But it's like a step above like a hipster movie. So that's why I think I'd enjoyed it. A little bit, it could have fallen into that hipster category very easily, but for whatever reason, it just is a neat little fun little quirky movie that really shocked me with how good it is.
I'm right there with you. It'll be much higher on my list. And I can't. There are only 5 reviews of this movie on IMDb. Really? Only 5 critics have taken a look at this. I don't know about its Rotten Tomatoes score, but yeah, there's not many people have had a look at this movie, and it baffles me. Like, you've got to see this. This is incredible. I mean, Roberto Colindres is amazing in a performance that I think no other person could do, honestly. And I mean, there's a lot of great actresses out there, but I don't think anybody could do what she did in this role, which is saying something. Then you've got Judith Light, who's an Academy Award level brilliant in this movie. I don't understand how this movie's been missed as it has.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of another actress trying to do it, like someone like Kristen Wiig, it just becomes a different movie, and she would be the type of actress to do something like this, like a quirky little indie comedy. I don't even want to call it a comedy because it's more than that. Not that comedies are bad, but it's you're right. It needs this cast who are relatively unknown, not completely unknown, but enough. Man, if you have a chance to check out Miss White Light, it's, again, watchable is what I keep coming back to. I'm trying to pick movies I'm going to watch again. That's really what the environment that I'm in is created, because it's hard to, when you're not in the theater and you can't enjoy the true art stuff. It's harder to really grasp onto it. But this is so watchable and so good, and I highly recommend anybody check this out. And I'm part of the times when I'm doing a list too is like I'm trying to be right. So far I have too low on my list. Apparently. What did you have? Was that number 7?
Number 7 for me is Nomadland from director Chloe Zhao and starring Frances McDormand. It is a amazing story about a woman who lives off the grid. She lives in a van and travels around the Northwest. She takes work wherever she can. She works at the Amazon distribution center in the Northwest, and then she works at a diner part time, just moving from place to place, living in her van. This is in part due to having lost her husband, but it's also in part just wanting to be away from people until she finds a community of people that are, kind of more her people, who are also live in vans, and she finds this community of people who all are living off the grid, and that could be too precious. But Chloe Zhao is not that filmmaker. She did the Bull Rider movie, The Rider, 2 years ago, and similarly found the depth of humanity in that film. And here she's exploring people, and she's exploring this character. And you can't find anybody like Frances McDormand to explore with. She's so great at finding a singular, person underneath all the bullshit, and she's amazing. This is a wonderful film. It's incredibly watchable for something that is this quiet and austere. And it takes place in Wyoming, Montana, and Washington, Oregon, and these are not typical places for movies to be set. And there's a lot of empty space to explore, and she does a lot of that, and it's really fascinating.
This is another one that's not available for me yet. Of the ones you gave me a list of I don't know, what is it, 5 to 10 movies. I also found some as well that were but 5 of the 10 were not available yet, and that was one of them. And this is probably the second most exciting. I'm sorry, I can't fucking talk today. This is probably the movie that I'm second most excited about seeing that I haven't seen from this year's list, and I'm glad to see it popped up on yours. So it just makes me that much more excited about it. Frances McDormand she doesn't really mess up, especially
True.
Lately.
Mm-hmm.
That should be available hopefully in the next month or two, though. Do you think that'll have Academy Award potential?
It definitely has, the chance, because she's got the pedigree
Right.
going into this, and that does seem to help when it comes to the Academy.
That's true. What are we on, 6?
Yes.
Rent-A-Pal. I don't know if I thought I liked this. I just remember it being dark and kind of weird and unique, and I'm into dark, weird, and unique. So I'm hoping that my memory is right on this one. I just remember it being fun and weird and fucked up, and about a guy who he's doing online dating, but it's not online because it's 1990, so he's using VHS tapes, and he comes across his friend through a VHS tape, and it's just kind of a unique, weird movie about him starting to, is he going crazy, or is the tape talking to him, and it really does a good job of really, you get to decide what you want, but they don't really tell you. You kind of have to figure it out for yourself, and it just gets stranger and stranger and more fucked up, and that's my lane, so I got to be loyal to my lane when it comes to movies.
It didn't make my list of the top 10. It is an honorable mention for me, though. This is one of my favorite horror movies of the year for sure. John Stevenson is the director and writer, and the star is a guy named Brian Landis Fulkins, and he's a creep, and he does a great job playing a creep, and he's just a really, really strange dude, and he gets a wonderfully odd energy. And then you've got Will Wheaton, who is just perfectly cast as this videotape guy, and the interplay between the two of them via this tape is weird and fucked up and fascinating, and you don't know if the tape is talking to him or not, and that is really a really interesting dynamic that they build there. Is he going crazy? Is there a supernatural element? The movie is really clever about how it presents that, and it's a lot of fun.
And it's so cringeworthy at times too. That's the other thing that.
But it embraces that, though.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean that in a good way. And
yeah.
Clearly you're a much more classy moviegoer than I am. But that's the kind of shit I'm into. So that's my number 6.
That's
What
a
do you
good one.
got?
I like it. Well, my number 6 is On the Rocks, Sofia Coppola's latest. That's available on Apple TV. It stars Rashida Jones and Bill Murray, and Bill Murray plays Rashida Jones's dad. She thinks her husband, played by Marlon Wayans, is cheating on her. Maybe he's convinced of it from the start, and they sets about on this almost sitcomic plot about just trying to uncover whether or not he's actually cheating. And it really just leads to this father and daughter spending time together and having these fun conversations and these unique interactions. And it is just endlessly charming, including I think when we talked about the best scene in any movie this year, which is Bill Murray talking to a police officer, and it is just all just Bill Murray charm, and it's irresistible. The whole movie is irresistible, and Regina Jones is incredible in it. It's sad to me. I turn on YouTube, or if I watch occasionally, I might catch a TV show. There she is hawking some cable television package or something, which is just. It breaks my heart. She is amazing. I know that I'm glad she's getting a payday from whatever whatever company is paying her for these commercials, but she doesn't belong in commercials. She's a movie star. There's no doubt about that. She belongs in movies like this that are absolutely fucking brilliant. She's great. The movie is just so. It's like Sofia Coppola thought, I want to make her a comedy like everybody else makes, but she's not able to make it like everybody else's because she's too good. It's like what Tarantino does with genre movies. Right. Like, yeah, I want to make a ninja movie, but I'm going to make Kill Bill. You know, that's like he can't do it badly. And the same way she's like making a sitcom or just a regular comedy, and she can't do it badly.
No, I have it higher on my list, so we'll get to it later. But and this isn't shit on Kristen Wiig Day. But I was just thinking she'd be the perfect for the character that Kristen Wiig played in Wonder Woman. Rashida Jones could have knocked it out of the park.
Right? Oh my God, that's true. That is so
true. I
don't
know why I just thought of that, but
you're absolutely right. We were actually thinking about comic book roles for her when we talked about this on the episode. Yeah.
My number 5 is Palm Springs. I didn't watch it when the rest of the podcast did, but again, it's a Groundhog Day movie. And it was just a unique version of it. It was fun. Andy Samberg, staying, slightly above the Adam Sandler level, with his career. And with movies like this it's just a fun, rewatchable comedy. It's not super artsy or anything like that. To me, it was fun. It's on Hulu, and it seems to be, I think it was up in close to the top of Josh's list. I think it was high on Zach's list. Excuse me. But yeah, it was just really, really good. You take a played genre, or not even genre, just a played idea in a movie that then Happy Death Day does it original, and then they somehow manage to keep it original. Is pretty impressive to me. And so I put it on my list.
I really liked it as well. It's not on my list, but it is a completely watchable movie, and it's certainly the best thing Sandberg's ever done in a movie, undoubtedly. And Christina Milioti, his co-star, is quite good as well. It really matches his energy. They're a good romantic match. And then you got J.K. Simmons doing some very funny stuff. It's really good. I really enjoyed it.
What do you got for number 5?
My number 5 is First Cow. First Cow, of course, director Kelly Reichardt wrote and directed this, and she's single-handedly bringing back the Western in a very different form. You could see a John Ford making this movie back in the 1950s, but not in the same way. Like he'd have more action and probably some racism, but. But no, it is essentially a Western in many ways, but it's also just this wonderful exploration of male friendship and two people who are vulnerable with each other, and that's not something that you normally see of men in movies, and that is really fascinating. And then you've got these there's almost a dollop quality to their crime that could if it got any more outsized, right. It could make up a story that would be part of American history in that way. That's true. These are wonderful performers and wonderful actors who made this, and then that cow is majestic. It really is. When it's coming down the river, and it's just the cow and the guy, on the raft. It is majestic. You can't stop watching. The cow's got magnetism.
What is it with A24 and animals, especially farm animals? The witch and the goat. No, I agree. I mean, this movie doesn't deserve. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It deserves to be as good as it is, but you would never realize it's going to be that good. And all the stuff you said about guys being vulnerable, and you wouldn't even notice it though. I mean, we're here talking about the movie and analyzing them. If you're just watching it to watch it for you're just going to be caught up in the movie, and you're not going to. You won't even know you're watching something like that, and then you'll pick up on it anyway. But that it just adds to the appeal of this movie for me, and I just hate doing lists that's like, well, clearly First Cow's better than Palm Springs, but I'm going to watch Palm Springs first, and it's I always feel stupid when
these top 10 lists are arbitrary.
I know.
I mean, I didn't even put Hamilton on my list. I know it's probably my favorite thing I saw this year, but it's not on my list because I don't consider it a movie in the traditional sense. But arbitrary. It's an arbitrary distinction.
My son was singing Hamilton the other day, and he's like, "I'm the goddamn guy that." And I was like, "Whoa, stop!"
Oh, I love it. Shout out quickly to the two other A24 movies that I saw this year. Actually, well, On the Rocks 3, I guess. So A24, they did On the Rocks, Boys State, and one you haven't seen yet called Minari, which is just outside my list, but is an exceptional film. And
that was the third movie I'm most excited about seeing. I mean, when we had these list of movies, one we already talked about, the Carey Mulligan movie, so I was really excited after that episode. Well, then when you gave me these lists and I'm researching them, that one looked really fantastic, and then you throw A24 on it. On top of that, it just makes it that much more appealing. Number 4 is weird for me. You're going to be like, what? She's in Portland.
Yes!
This was... I put it on, and immediately, because I'm working my ass off right now in my day job, and I'm coming home, and my wife's sitting on the sofa watching her phone because she can't figure out how to turn the PlayStation on. And instantly, I'm starting to getting connected with this guy, and I start to feel his pain. And then very quickly, he and I are different people. He's way more charismatic and then even kind of shitty. But it just, this was such a. I actually watched it twice. It's part of why I have it so high on the list. Is it definitely made me. I watched it twice in the same day.
Wow.
Well, I made my wife watch it after I watched it the first time. Just because I wanted to have her watch a movie about a husband cheating on. I don't know. That wasn't not what I was trying to do, but it was, in hindsight, sounds really bad.
Yeah.
But it was just such a weird. The start of the movie shifts halfway through. Like the whole point of this movie, on a dime, just takes a complete 180, and it's not like an M. Night Shyamalan twist or anything. It's so subtle, but it's just. You're caught up in it. And I can't even relate to any of these guys. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I thought I was, but then I'm just watching from the side, and it ends up just being this neat movie about a guy who's very successful, but living a very repetitive life, trying to vicariously live through his friend who's struggling, ready to give up, but he's out there making music videos and doing what he loves, and he's trying to use his friend to channel his happiness through that. And so he's trying to basically takes his friend on a trip to Portland so he can find an old girlfriend, and hijinks ensue, I guess. But it just, I found the whole thing fascinating. You start to kind of, you don't necessarily like the movie, and then he starts doing some weird things, and then he does the right thing, and you just, I don't know, the whole time I'm conflicted and fascinated, and I don't know, just a really interesting movie.
Yeah, imagine if partway through Sideways, suddenly Thomas Hayden Church's character is the main character.
Right.
That's kind of like what this is. I compared this in my review to Sideways because I think it is that good. It's not on my list. It's just outside my list, right next to Minari. But I saw this movie back in February.
Really?
And I really, really enjoyed it back then. and it's only kind of grown in my imagination. Tommy Dewey is really really terrific in this movie. He begins he looks like at the start he seems like a character in the movie that gets left behind.
Right.
And then as he grows, it really becomes about him, and a very fascinating performance.
Well, yeah, and it starts with he's walking through the house. He has to eat a cold dinner, which I've done a million times. He's got to run to the store and grab this, and then did you do this? You got to fix that, and he can never get a chance to relax. And so that's like the first 3 minutes of the movie, and you kind of start hating Minka Kelly's character for a little bit. But then they go to this class reunion, and now they're getting along and they're having fun, and immediately from that point on, it was just like, okay, I'm not this guy. I don't know just kind of, I don't know. It just was very fascinating, interesting. I don't know where I had to rent it on Amazon, so I think that's where it is right now. But I definitely recommend checking it out. It's actually pretty fun. Not fun's not the right word. It's actually pretty watchable.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm glad you had it on your list. I'm very happy that you enjoyed that one.
It's probably pretty ridiculously high, but I watched it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
What do you got
considering my number 4 is the only blockbuster on my list, and really the only blockbuster of the year, really, if you get down to it in terms of what was released in theaters, and that's The Invisible Man. Elizabeth Moss and directed by Lee Wanell. This is an exciting movie that is just captivating from minute one. Like, you are breathless in the first minute of this movie. And it's this entirely silent scene of Elizabeth Moss just escaping from her boyfriend's house, trying to make sure he stays asleep while she's slipping around and trying not to make any noise, trying not to wake him up. Lee Wanell films this in a fashion that is edge of your seat exciting. And then it takes off into this whole other thing that becomes this very resonant and truthful exploration of what it's kind of like for somebody to be living under the thumb of someone who's spent time physically and emotionally abusing them. And they use the Invisible Man thing as a way of exploring that, but also creating this thriller excitement that isn't exploiting abuse. That's really the tight wire, the high wire that this is walking is that you could turn this into something really offensive with the wrong direction, with the wrong performances. This could be about exploiting physical and emotional violence for thrills. And this movie doesn't do that. It takes off in various different directions, including a very horror movie direction at a particular point. That's one of the most memorable scenes in any movie all year. The death of Elizabeth Moss's sister in the film is shocking and terrifying. And from there, there's a lot more thriller and horror elements, but that other element is always there. It's just always kind of in the back of your head as opposed to on screen. That's what's really the clever trick that Lee Wanell plays is forcing you to consider what it might be like for somebody who's going through emotional and physical abuse, but at the same time, you're enjoying a horror thriller.
I couldn't agree more. I left this outside my top 10 for the simple reason that I don't have confidence in my list, and I figured putting a blockbuster on it would give it that less, substance, which none of them should have substance anyway. They're arbitrary lists, like you say. But you're right. I mean, there's times where literally nothing can be happening, but it's so tense because you just don't know where he's at. They go that route instead. He might not even be there. You just don't know, and that's what's so fascinating about the horror element of this. Definitely the best horror movie of the year, far and away. And if I had a horror movie on here earlier, I guess Rent-A-Pal. My fault.
I have one horror movie that's a little bit higher, but
yeah, it's very good. Best horror movie blockbuster. How about that?
There you go.
Very watchable, very good. Elizabeth Moss had a great year on top of that.
She did.
Her performance in Shirley is, I don't know if that's on here later or not, but
no, I don't have that one on my list, but it is one of the top performances of the year.
Her performance there really elevates that movie. She's a great actress, and love everything she does. My number 3 is On the Rocks. I think I like that movie more than I should. In some ways I have it up there with Lost in Translation. That's how much I like this. Bill Murray he's walked that line of, his casual fan who just loves everything he does except for the serious movies, and then the fans like us who like the serious stuff on top of that. He just walks that line between the two so perfectly. And because of that, in a lot of ways, I think this is the best performance he's had, because he ties both those elements together and just is such an interesting, fun character. I'm using the word interesting way too much. I mean, he's Bill Murray. He's like if you were to walk down the street and Bill Murray were to walk up behind you and put his hands over your eyes and be like, guess who? No one will ever believe you or whatever. He's kind of playing that character here, it seems like. And because of that, I just had a blast with this movie. And then you throw Rashida Jones in this, and, it's back to that. It's more depressing because she's not a bigger star. I think a lot of it's her own choosing. But she is so good in this movie and lets you know she could carry any movie. And then Marlon Wayans, though, him just playing that small role, he has enough. He does a good enough job of creating enough doubt that allows Bill Murray's character to let you go along for the ride. It's just, I think Sofia Coppola is just such a great director, and I could not recommend this movie more. I think it's definitely a gateway, at least, to get the Groundhog Day fans into the Lost in Translation type movies, if nothing else. But I love this movie.
I agree, and there's the word that comes to mind when it comes to Bill Murray in this movie is effortless. He just seems to have this lightness to him that is just so natural, and as much as it's Bill Murray, he's also slipped inside this character so easily. It fits him he's so suited to it that it feels effortless and real and it's just grounded even, which is amazing. You'd think in a movie like this that the Bill Murrayisms might stand out more, and it doesn't. He's just so relaxed. He's the most chill dude. And
you can tell how much trust he has in Sofia Coppola and how much trust she has in him. And it really is a masterpiece. And this one stayed at number 3 every time I did a list. Consistently, I just love this movie. What do you got?
My number 3 is Ms. White Light. Roberta Colindrez starring in this film and just delivering a performance that I said earlier I don't think anybody else could deliver. She's just so unique, and everything about this movie is so unique, and even the direction is unique. There's a scene in this movie that is so insanely good that I keep wanting to write about just this scene. It's a scene set in the hospital where she's just had this moment with the psychic love interest, and they cut from that. They do the camera turns around to capture what's in front of them, which is her teenage friend has passed out and seemingly may actually die. And back to her, and then she walks down the hallway. The camera sticks with her as she walks by and walks out of the room, and then turns around to capture both her father, the scene that he's witnessing with the teenage girl, and in the distance, the psychic boyfriend. And it's so perfect. It's almost I don't know, Scorsese level brilliance in terms of just how that scene is staged perfectly. I can't even imagine how they managed that with the camera work in that. Paul Schulberg is the director of this, and he just did an amazing job with it. And it's both artful, funny, weird, like there's almost a supernatural element to what she does. You you don't know if she has like a certain like a power to actually reach in and talk to people who are dying, or if she's bullshitting. I mean, it's amazing. The costume she wears is this rumpled brown suit. It looks like a second skin for her. Like this is what she wears every day, and she doesn't change ever. I just adore this movie so much. It's so weird and quirky and dark. It's got a really dark sense of humor on top of it. I love the scenes with her and Judith Light and this psychic character. I need to get his name because he's so good in this. Yes. It's just Zachary Spicer, and he and Judith Light are vibing on this great friendly level, like having this great back and forth. And Roberta Colindrez is just so frustrated by them, and it's so funny. Oh, I couldn't stop laughing during those scenes. It's so great.
Yeah. What has that director directed besides this?
I don't think he's done any. I don't think Paul Schulberg's done much of anything else other than this. I think this might be the first one.
I mean, obviously, you've seen only 5 reviews on IMDb. That's not great, but it reminds me of kind of like what Jason Reitman did. It's definitely in the lane of something he would do, and I could see him having a career similar to that if the right people saw this, because it's that. It's a movie with a specific cadence. Everybody's on board. All the actors, they're all doing the same thing, or they're at least in the same. They know they're in the same movie, and because of that, it puts it a step up above any just standard comedy you'd see during the year. Yeah, but definitely check that one out. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, Ms. White Light is absolutely brilliant. This is his second feature film, by the way. The other one is called The Good Catholic, but I've never remotely even heard of that one. So his next movie, though, is a horror film, so I'm excited to see where that's going.
Yeah, and maybe we'll accidentally see Good Catholic someday. Who knows?
Yeah.
My number 2 has been my number 1 all year long. It's The Hunt. Again, I have a specific. I'm into certain genre movies, and this one spoke to me. I like what it did. I know we disagree on it. I don't think we disagree. I think we agree. I just happen to like what you don't like about it. I think it's really more where we're at with it. I think Betty Gilpin is an underrated actress who never really gets a shot, and I think she shines here and is fantastic. I thought the movie was fun. Whenever I talk politics with people who disagree with me, I try to find more of a middle ground instead of tell them they're racist or an idiot or whatever. I try to have more of a reasonable conversation to find out why they feel a certain way.
Right.
And this movie makes fun of the other end of that. It doesn't come out and say it, and I don't think you gotta bring it, because I do think it's their intention, but it's not obvious that this is clearly a social media in real life. And I just found that fascinating. It's so much fun. And, it's a genre movie. It's super uber violent. Hilary Swank, the fight scene at the end is just entertaining. It's over the top. It's not realistic. But, again, it's similar to some of the movies we've liked. Everybody's in on the movie. Nobody's, I think when we talked about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, we talked about Fences and how Denzel was doing one thing and Viola Davis was doing something else. Here, everybody's doing the same thing, and they're all in the same movie, and it's not great acting, but don't get me wrong. But because of that, what they're all doing, this B movie, over the top exploitation movie, and to me, that's fun, and that's right up my alley, and I loved it. And it doesn't hurt that it was the last movie I've seen in the theater, so there's that awesome holding on to. So I don't know. I love that movie.
I liked it. I liked The Hunt. I didn't love it. I described it as Twitter as a movie, which right. I thought it is Twitter the movie, which is an element I do enjoy about it. It didn't quite hit me as hard as I think it hit you.
Well, and I'm also less classy, and I'm into these type of movies more so. What do you have as number 2?
My number 2 is the best horror movie of the year, She Dies Tomorrow, directed by Amy Seimetz. And this movie is fucking brilliant. Just an amazing horror movie that unintentionally captures what 2020 was without having to be about what 2020 was, because it was made before the whole COVID-19 thing hit. And yet it's more about this than even the movie like Songbird from that just came out that is actually about COVID. This is a movie that Caitlin Schell is the initial star, but it's an ensemble cast with a whole bunch of people. And basically this woman believes that she's going to die tomorrow. She's become infected by this thought, I'm going to die tomorrow. And she tells this to her friend, and hours later, her friend is like, I'm going to die tomorrow. And she tells her brother and her sister-in-law and two friends of theirs at the party. And hours later, they're all like, I'm going to die tomorrow. And that level of apocalyptic thought is where we were in March. Where we all were in March was like, this thing is coming to kill us all. And this movie is just brilliant in that way, but it didn't do that intentionally. Like I said, this movie was made before COVID, so this was not what Amy Seimetz was making this movie about. She was making a horror film, and in that way, she made this incredibly brilliant, artful horror movie that just uses these characters and this premise, and then these brilliant scenes of just this bizarre lights and these creepy, just moments of people just staring at the camera. There's this brilliant scene where one of the characters might have murdered her family members, and you don't know exactly. There's blood, but is anybody actually dead? Was anybody going to die anyway? It's so brilliant and so beautifully shot. I just adore this movie. I've adored this movie since I saw it back in July, and I've barely stopped thinking about it since. It's just gorgeous.
I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but here's the reason it's back to context and the setting you see the movie in. And if I saw this in the theater, I'd be right there with you. Instead, I see this and I get interrupted. I have people yelling in the background. I don't have it on my good TV because I have my little shitty TV. There's just a lot of things that just made this. And then you throw it's definitely what it captures great is anxiety and how contagious that could be. And I picked up on it and I got it, but I didn't get fully invested because of the environment I was in, and it pisses me off because this easily should have been on a list, but because of that, I'd almost be faking it because I haven't had a good experience with it yet because of the environment I saw it in, and that's frustrating for me. But it definitely is very artful. It's the way it captures anxiety, and the way they apply that to horror. Is very similar to the way they do it in Invisible Man. Really, it's a different way of. That's not your standard horror movie. Yeah, it's a blockbuster, but they're using tension of just the unknown. And Babadook did it a few years ago too, where they just a unique way of making things scary. Yeah. So I definitely agree, and it's a fantastic movie. I want to see it again. I just want to see it in the proper setting. It's really frustrating, especially that it's that high on your list. You've been saying it's number one all year long, so. I know what your number one is, actually. My number one, and I just feel like it had to be number one, and is Mank. I mean, David Fincher is the best director there is, and it's hard to say a movie about another movie should be the best movie of the year. This is the closest I've had to a cinematic experience since losing theaters, and I think I'm holding on to that. I'm imagining seeing this and Citizen Kane as a double feature, and the experience I had watching it on my fucking phone. That's how, and still, it captured that, and it just kind of made, I don't know, it got my imagination going, and maybe it was just wanting that. Yeah, I loved Gary Oldman. It elevated Citizen Kane for me, a movie that I've always liked, but I've always just thought was a little bit on the overrated side. It helped elevate that. And I haven't seen any other movies about it. I know there are other movies made about Citizen Kane. But that whole experience of watching them back-to-back was a lot of fun for me and really neat. And I know it's kind of a safe choice and pretty typical, especially with it being Fincher. But he is my favorite director, and I just absolutely love this movie. And then on top of that, you throw in my brother was trying to make another movie called The Newscaster. His star of that movie is actually in Mank, so it makes it that much more fun for me.
That's great.
I know it's typical, but I think it's me longing for something cinematic.
I completely understand that. I really like Mank too. It's not on my list, but I really did enjoy that movie. And Gary Oldman's performance is undeniable. It is phenomenal, and that scene at dinner with him drunk and, and throwing up in front of Hearst it's an iconic scene. It is a scene that goes on any Gary Oldman reel next to the best stuff that he's ever done.
For sure.
That's awesome.
Well, tell you what your happy movie is.
My number one movie is an Australian family film called H is for Happiness, starring Daisy Axon. This movie is just pure joy. And in a year like we've had with 2020, you need joy. And this is entirely joy from beginning to end. And on top of that, it's not a cloying kind of thing. It's not manipulative or childish. thing. It's a movie that is dealing with big themes. Like she's dealing with her parents potentially getting divorced and the divide between her father and her beloved uncle and a baby. The mother, the parents lost a baby, and she's dealing with that. But all of it coming from the perspective of this 8 or 9 year old child who speaks like an 8 or 9 year old child would, saying these things that are surprising and funny and insightful because she's 8 and you don't kind of expect her to have that. And she's not necessarily aware, and she's not at all aware that she's being funny or insightful because she's a kid. She doesn't think in that way. She doesn't think it's uncomplicated. And she captures that so beautifully, that uncomplicated, way that a child thinks is captured just brilliantly in this movie. The director John Sheedy does an amazing job of bringing her performance to life and giving her room to create this character and become this Candace Fee, who is this ball of just pure light and joy. And this is the movie I'm going to watch whenever I can, whenever I don't feel right, whenever I'm depressed. I usually watch Legally Blonde, but it'll be this movie now. Not that I'm going to get rid of Legally Blonde. I love that movie, but this is my new ball of joy. This is my new light in the darkness movie because it is just so wonderful. And on top of it, it's so funny. Every joke in this movie lands for me. Every little bit between her and her friend Douglas Benson, just the way she says his entire name when she dresses him. The horse, this weird thing about a little horse in the woods. So good. It's so brilliant. I could just talk about this movie for days and days and days because I just love it that much. And no movie I don't think I've ever seen has made me this happy.
And the cool thing about it is this is a movie we probably wouldn't have seen. It's not like it has like Jennifer Garner and Owen Wilson as the parents.
It's an Australian family movie.
So it's not gonna pop up in theaters probably randomly like some other movies that similar to this, but a little bit less. I mean, I'm with you. I like this movie a ton. It catches me off guard again. Here I am talking about how dark and fucked up I like things, and then this comes on and it's amazing. I'm not the demographic for it, and it's so smart in the way that it takes like some like bad kids movies and uses that like template and just throws a ton of just art and smart just filmmaking into it. So it's like you could be watching Matilda from like whatever that Danny DeVito movie was, but they throw like Amelie level art with it, and it's amazing just how they put it all together. I mean, part of the main reason it's not on my list is it's one of those kind of like Enemy was, where you see it and you're like, you got to see this, and so I have to discover it through you, and I love it. I love it a lot. But when you discover it for yourself, it makes it that much more. It sticks with you that much more. But it definitely deserves to be on anybody's list. And if nothing else, if you're gonna have a family movie, put that one on, because it really is. It's got some for everybody. It's fun enough for the kids, but it does work for the adults, clearly, as here we are talking about it. It's the best movie of the year. So, but the fact that we wouldn't have seen it is what's insane. Yeah.
There's no way this would have gotten a theatrical release. I happened to get a screening link from the studio that released it. I think it was Samuel Goldwyn. And I never would have watched it because we would have had too many movies in theaters for that weekend. And I probably would have missed it and just not gotten around to catching the link. I just feel so, it was meant to be that I saw this movie because I needed it so much. And I know I'm bringing a lot to this personally because, last year was so fucked up. I mean, I can't say enough how much I needed this movie, this light, this joy, this pure happiness that is H is for happiness. And that ending, my God, that ending is so good. Yeah. It's such a great ending.
Yeah, and it's not over the top. It's just perfect. A lesser movie would have taken it a step too far. It's just so well made. And I mean, I noticed the main difference between you and I is, when you're depressed, you go to this. Like, to me, I like to steer into it and just Alice in Chains and, whatever. Just let me wallow in it a little bit. I don't look for happiness. but if regardless of what mood you're in, this movie's going to cheer you up. That's
absolutely.
For sure. But really, do yourself a favor if you got nothing. Show it to your kids, make a family movie night. You got nothing else to do. Put that one on. We'd like to see it have a longer life. I don't know how many IMDb reviews that one has.
Mostly Australian critics have seen it.
All right. We have no classic this week because we're going to review 1990. And
I hope we're probably not going to take as long to do this one.
Probably not. I struggled with this one too because I felt like I should have had more movies than I did. But I'll start with number 10.
1990 was a terrible year for movies.
There's great movies in it,
as my list attests.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a few great movies, but then the rest is just kind of in the middle of the road. And the fact that I feel like I'm forcing it on here because I'm leaving some decent movies off. But number 10, I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles just because of the experience we had.
It's much higher on my list, honestly. Much higher.
I know. Here's what I'm leaving off. I'm leaving off Kindergarten Cop, Dances with Wolves, Edward Scissorhands. I even left off Pump Up the Volume. I had that at number 11. Hunt for Red October. But I don't know. The movie, I loved it as a kid. And then to come back and watch it, basically vicariously watch Sean fall in love with it. So I'm kind of enjoying his experience through him is making it that much more fun for me. It's a silly, dumb movie, but at the same time, if you release it today, I think it would play better than the new ones to all audiences, not just to us. Maybe I'm wrong, but
no, you're right.
What do you have for number 10?
My number 10 is Joe versus the Volcano. I love Tom Hanks in this movie. I think Brain Cloud is one of the funnier things that I've seen in the movie. I love that. Just the offbeat, quality of that movie is just brilliant. And I love Meg Ryan's 3 performances and 3 distinct characters. The same guy who did Moonstruck and Doubt did this movie. That's bizarre to me, and and also kind of perfect. I really love this movie, and number 10 seemed like the right spot for it.
And I feel like I'm being an asshole here, but I'm putting The Godfather 3 at number 9. I think it's a good movie. It's hard to separate from the series. But I'm trying really hard, and I think I'm forcing it in here. It's like that puzzle piece that doesn't fit. I'm willing it to be on my top 10 list, even though I probably won't watch it again, and I might watch some of his other movies before it. But there are iconic scenes in it, and there's a lot good about it. It's just not quite, or not even close to 1 and 2. But I still feel like it deserves something in a shitty year that is 1990. But
it is a bad year.
But it's me. I fully will honor the fact that I'm forcing it on my list against my will.
My number 9 is Pump Up the Volume. It is one of my favorite movies. Got me into it. It's my favorite radio movie. It's why I wanted to be in radio. I know now that obviously radio is nothing like what this kid was doing, but it was the radio I wanted to do when I was his age, so it makes sense. And at the time, I was just this huge fan of Christian Slater. I wanted to be Christian Slater in 1990, and I retain that memory, and that's why that movie still ranks highly with me.
I had it at basically because I had to force feed The Godfather in here. It knocked that out of my top 10. But that episode was a fun episode to do. I think Michael joined us that week, and it was a hell of a movie. It's over the top and kind of, it's not what radio is at all. In some ways, it's cheesy, but it really does play well still. I enjoyed it. I'd never seen it before. My number 8 is Misery. I think watching it definitely didn't hold up to what I remembered it. as, but still the nostalgia's making it hang on a little bit for me, and just kind of the memorable horror moments of what Kathy Bates does. And I think a lot of it's more in your head than actually what she does, you see on screen. It's fine. It's 1990, so it makes my list. It really fell quite. I probably would have, if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year, I bet I had this in the top 3. And so it definitely, watching it, it made it fall a little bit.
It's not on my list because I didn't have the kind of connection to it that you did when you were younger. Not that I didn't like it. I just didn't really have much of a memory of it, seeing it the first time. And so I wasn't really tied to that.
Well, I think I only saw it once, and that's what led to the memory of it. But anyway, you go ahead.
My number 8 is Awakenings, which surprised me. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. I thought it was going to be not Patch Adams bad, but certainly I thought it was going to be in line with something more maudlin, I guess, and it wasn't, and that impressed me. Penny Marshall's a hell of a good director, and I got to give her more credit. And De Niro's performance is really not. It's not the kind of pushy, manipulative, the kind of, I know he probably did like crazy, method actor shit to do this, but it doesn't feel that way while you're watching it. It feels like a very effortless performance in most scenes. And I really appreciate that. And Robin Williams is completely offbeat. And I think Robin Williams probably had maybe one of the best he was probably the best actor of 1990, because I've got another movie of his on my list coming up.
Is it Cadillac Man? Because that's what's on that's my number 7.
Yes, it is. Mine too.
I think we just have Awakenings and Cadillac Man switched, because my number 6 is Awakenings. This movie is, and this is the one I'd watch first between the two for sure. But because you get that standard Robert Williams performance, but you get it, I don't know the right word. Basically, as a director, keeping him on point and on focus. So you get that high energy Robert Williams, but more focused. And because of that, it ends up being a fun, scary, creepy movie that scary is not the right word, but it's just and then the interaction with him and Tim Robbins, and I don't know. It's just whenever you think something's gonna happen, it just keeps. Robin Williams does something you like. I don't know. I'm fumbling right and left here. I apologize, but it's just a movie that keeps one up in itself, and I really enjoyed that about it. The anxiety the movie has, where he's trying to deal with this hostage situation while selling cars and dealing with his ex-wife and girlfriend. Just so many things going on at once. Robin Williams navigates it so perfectly, and it's actually a lot of fun.
And the way he reveals the character too. I mean, it's because he's a shitty salesman. He's just not shitty, but he's probably a good salesman. But he's a shitty human being in being a good salesman. And then he kind of reveals himself throughout to be like you can't tell for a little while if he's just trying to keep himself alive or if he actually is a good person. And then he slowly reveals that deep down inside, he's actually a really good guy who really does want to help people in some way, or at least help this guy. And he's maybe discovering these good things about himself for the very first time. And that's exciting. And of course, he doesn't slow down to even really think about doing the right thing. He's in the moment, constantly rat-a-tat, front and center in that moment. And in that moment, it reveals his character, his true nature. And that's what's really exciting and fun for me about this movie.
Yeah, what'd you have for, was it number 7?
That was my number 7. Is Cadillac Man.
Yeah, it's. I tried to show, like, I have a 27-year-old sales guy who's not even your typical salesperson that I work with. I'm trying to give him movies to watch, like used cars, Glengarry Glen Ross. I need to throw this one at him too, because I mean, a shitty human being and salesperson do kind of go hand in hand. Not that he is, but he needs to get better at the shitty part so he can do his job. No, I mean, from the second the movie starts, where he's trying to sell a lady in the middle of a funeral procession, a car.
Yeah.
It's just, I enjoy the movie. My number 6 was Awakening, so we already talked about that.
All right.
I feel like, again, I like it a lot, but I also feel like I'm making it higher because I'm supposed to. I definitely would watch Cadillac Man before Awakenings any day of the week. It's more of a unique movie. Awakenings is a safer pick, and I'm sure they put De Niro in a coma for a week to get used to it. But I think the fact that it shocked us is really why it probably landed in the middle of our lists. What do you have for number 6?
My number 6 is Wild at Heart, which is a movie that's not available anymore for some reason. It's impossible to find, but I've seen it years ago and I still remember and enjoy and love it. Nicolas Cage playing his version of Elvis and doing, kind of a classically Cage performance in a David Lynch movie opposite Laura Dern. It's an exciting movie, and it's just as good as that promise of a David Lynch Nicolas Cage movie, and that really is something to live up to in this day and age.
And the reason it didn't make my list is because I couldn't remember. I remember watching, I remember liking it, but I'm not positive enough. I want to see it again.
Yeah,
because I've since then become more familiar with David Lynch, and I've gotten a new appreciation for Nicolas Cage. Because when I saw it the first time, it was weird for me because Nicolas Cage was the big movie star. Yeah, he did weird movies. I mean, The Rock and Con Air, he was over the top and dumb, but I wasn't used to. I didn't realize that at the time. I just thought it was cool. So I want to rewatch it before I give it that attention. Or give it that credit, which I'm sure it deserves. I had Exorcist 3 as number 5. Another one that kind of shocked us. That we were expected to be kind of dumb, and out of nowhere, it was like, holy shit, this is a pretty good movie. And because I'm into horror movies, I put that on my list, in the middle of the road. But it was, I don't know. You got the original author, William, what's his name?
William Peter Blatty.
Yeah, he directed it. He wrote the book for The Exorcist, or the script at least. And I just thought it was really well made. And when you have a sequel, it was so bad. And then they can come out with a third one and actually make it quite good. I mean, it came out in a weird year because Repossessed, the Leslie Nielsen parody, came out like right after this. So it was kind of landed on a funny release week, and they never really picked up the audience that it probably deserves. I'm sure there's a cult following behind it, but I just was shocked at how much I enjoyed it when we went back and watched it this year.
Absolutely, it's sneaky brilliant, and I think the fact that it's got that 3 on the end really kind of throws people off of how good this movie really is. George C. Scott is he's just incredible. He really is. I went into Patton when we watched Patton thinking like, this is going to be homework. And then it wasn't. It was just fucking genius. He's just that good. And, you get the same out of, the Jimmy Stewart movie we watched with him that was absolutely brilliant. I mean, he's just amazing. And he's great at this. You wouldn't think anybody would be great at this in Exorcist 3. And he throws himself into it because he knows he has the material here to make this work. And he believes in it. And because he believes in it, you invest in it. And his passion and power is just undeniable. He's just that good.
What's great about him, too, is that he can be the lead. He can be the side guy. He can take any role. I mean, he's Patton. Everybody knows him as Patton, but he can, in the Jimmy Stewart movie, he kind of was off to the side. And, the Kubrick movie, he's almost a straight guy. So he does a lot of he's very moldable, I guess. And then he eats a lot of scenery in this one in a very fun way.
In a very fun way.
What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Postcards from the Edge, Carrie Fisher's movie with Meryl Streep as the star, and just absolutely a genius film. Meryl Streep is amazing in this movie. It's really funny. It's got that great wit to it, and I really just it's one of those things that this year getting to see Meryl in a couple of really great films helps. Like she's great in Prom, she's great in Let Them All Talk. But I saw this even before I saw those, and it was like this was the perfect primer to see her again in a very positive light in Prom and Let Them All Talk. And so I'm glad I had the opportunity to see this one, and I pushed it up higher on my list just because of that, because she's been so great in 2 other movies this year.
Yeah, this is my number 4 is Postcards from the Edge. In some ways, it's kind of like, I think it's my favorite Meryl Streep performance, and I don't know. I know that's probably sacrilege because she's been great in a lot of things, but it's more. This is more entertaining than a lot of her other movies. Then you throw in the true story of what Carrie Fisher. I know it's not entirely true; it's loosely based on Carrie Fisher's life. It's a book she wrote, but it's so much fun. Her interaction with Shirley MacLaine, is that the mom?
Yeah, Shirley MacLaine.
I think their chemistry is fantastic. Then you throw in the fact that we've watched a lot of Meryl Streep this year, and it was all pretty good Meryl Streep. Even like Sophie's Choice, which it was a lot of homework in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But she disappeared in that role. You weren't seeing, the number 1 actress of all time. You're just seeing a person, the character. So
right.
I think that also plays a role in why I had this so high on the list as well. But I really enjoy this movie. It's very watchable and very fun.
I agree. My number 4 is Exorcist 3. Again, yeah, just so great, and don't underestimate Brad Dourif as well, who is the crazy guy, and then the casting as well of the original, of the guy from The Exorcist, bringing him back and having him, that dual character going on is. That can grow really confusing in the wrong hands, and especially when you're talking about a guy who's not a natural director and William Peter Blatty. Yeah, it's really surprising the way he's able to juggle that dual character and not leave you completely entirely confused. He does a really great job, and those scenes between Dourif and George C. Scott when they're in the room together, just going head to head, nose to nose, it is fucking awesome. just so much. I know it's over the top, but it's powerhouse over the top of fun. I loved it.
Yeah. Great movie. My number 3 is Miller's Crossing. I feel like it probably should be 2, but I'm gonna go with 3. The Coen brothers are the best. They really are, and this is one of their lesser known movies, which is saying a lot because it's a fairly well known movie, but it's this mixed with some of the other gangster movies that came out this year really changed the way those type of movies were, the way they were from here on out. I think we're going to get to 1994 in 4 years or 3 years, and that's the year that everything starts to change. But I really think you see the seeds of it here in 1990 with movies like this, which probably both of our number 1. Goodfellas. Those movies really, I think, really start to shape what the 90s become. More so than Pulp Fiction, or maybe not more so, but before Pulp Fiction did. But I love Miller's Crossing, and it was fun to go revisit it. What's your number 3?
So, 1990 is a really shitty year for movies. It really is. Like when you get down to it, it's a really shitty year for movies, which is how just the experience alone of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles makes it my number 3 movie of 1990. Here you are talking about Miller's Crossing, and I'm going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'll get to Miller's Crossing in a moment, okay? Yeah. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is it's fun. It knows exactly what it is. And I didn't get to see it at the time. I was 14 years old, so I was out of Ninja Turtles by then. I was not in the age group for Ninja Turtles. So I kind of looked down my nose, even as a teenager, at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a baby thing, as a kid thing. And looking back at 30 years distance, I watched the movie that other people saw initially, which is just this brilliantly made blockbuster it's entirely satisfying for being what it is, blockbuster kids entertainment. This is high level blockbuster kids entertainment. Like I said, this movie knows exactly what it is, and I I can appreciate that now as a 44-year-old man. I can appreciate this movie being so aware of itself and incredibly well made. I think it could come out today and be just as good as any kids movie that's being released today that's specifically aimed at kids.
Because less is more. I mean, that's really, there's so much over the top, noise in a lot of, especially like the Ninja Turtles and Transformer movies. This is more relaxed, and because it's not as in your face, it's actually more enjoyable. You can see the action, everything's practical. I don't know. I wish
it's a tight movie.
Yeah.
No fat. They get to the point. They do what this movie's here to do: bring you Ninja Turtles. I'm trying to gird myself for the disappointment that's going to be TMNT 2. I just have a feeling, I have a bad feeling that I need to prepare myself for that one.
Vanilla Ice, it's great.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 2. I'm not even positive it came out in 1990, but it was released in the theaters at one point in 1990. We talked about it this year. Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, one of my favorite horror movies because it's so fucked up. It's not necessarily the most artistically well-made movie, but because of that, that documentary style that it's filmed in, I just think it works for this movie. Michael Rooker's he's not the greatest actor. He's definitely a character actor in some ways, but just because he's not great makes it just work in the style that much more. There's one of the most horrifying scenes I've ever seen in a movie where they sit and watch the kill they just made like it was nothing. And I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think it was just fantastic. But again, back to the fact that 1990 sucked. This didn't come out in 1990, I don't think. But it did get a theatrical release.
Yeah. It was made in 86 and then released theatrically in 1990.
Right. So
because it was on the Video Nasties list.
Yeah, which we'll get to that in a bonus episode later on.
I liked that movie a lot too. It didn't make my list, but I do appreciate that movie a great deal.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Miller's Crossing. Just going back to that, an incredibly well-made movie. It's so craftsman-like. The craftsmanship is just brilliant, and little touches of humor as well. Albert Finney in a dress for no reason. He was just there that day. Throw a dress on him, put him in the ladies' room. Just these little touches, these little details. That great scene with Albert Finney when they try to kill him and he's hiding under the bed and they don't kill him and he gets up and he goes to kill them. Fucking great. What a scene. Absolutely amazing. Just the focus on hats alone is just so detailed and so ingenious, especially like if I know you used to be, and I am a fan of the dollop, and you realize just how important hats used to be in the world. You think about that and the detail that the Coen brothers bring to that, understanding how hats are important. It's brilliant in so many different ways.
Yeah, it's just amazing how they don't really mess up. Everything they do is so perfect. And then look at someone like David Lynch, who has some qualities that they have, but he's almost living a Coen Brother movie. and they're making one. But it's just really weird. Like, he'll be like, you got to put this under the sofa. They're like, well, you can't see it. Well, the Coen Brothers, they would find a way to, like you said, with hats, to do something. They know every little thing about a Coen Brother movies is important. It matters, and it makes the movie that much more special. Everything they do, it's just kind of insane that they don't miss ever.
I'm so happy to have seen this movie this year too, given the fact that John Turturro starred in 2020's worst movie of the year, The Jesus Rolls. My absolute, bar none, worst movie of 2020, unquestionably. It was nice to see him in a very, very, very good movie.
Well, if you want to see him in a good movie, just put a Coen Brothers movie on with him in it.
There you go.
Not a whole lot more. Goodfellas.
Yeah, Goodfellas is number 1.
I mean, it's safe, but it is. I mean, that movie is just so iconic. It's
undeniable.
Yeah.
That
really is the movie that, I was hinting at it earlier when I was talking about Miller's Crossing, but Goodfellas specifically, movies really changed right there. Similar to the way it did when Star Wars came out. It was just directors started filming things differently after that, and it's got the pop music score. It's got the gangsters. It's just the long shots. Everything, the acting, everything about it it's just an experience, And I mean, movies before this gave you experiences, but maybe it's my age. But this is really the one that just kind of changed the game. And I've always said it was Pulp Fiction, but then going back and watching this, I really think it was this.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think even Tarantino would have to acknowledge the influence that he felt from this, and the freedom that Scorsese had to make this is influential in giving him the opportunity to do Pulp Fiction. I don't think you get Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction without Goodfellas and the success that it had, and the profile that it created, and how it highlighted tourist directors like Scorsese and Tarantino, and it created a business avenue in that way that allowed people to go, okay, we can give directors a little bit more free reign to do something big and artful, and it can work and be very successful. This was a blockbuster at the time, on top of being a brilliant movie, and that's why it helped to create what was the 90s after it. Everything that came after it was after Goodfellas.
Yeah, that's AG after Goodfellas. Yeah, I feel like it should be older than 1990. That's the only thing I struggle with. It's like, because now this is the year I start really remembering things, and being old enough to anticipate Ninja Turtles, and knowing about Awakenings, not seeing it obviously at 10, but. Dance with Wolves again. Dance with Wolves is a fine movie. It just kind of it's shitty because it beat Goodfellas. But I don't know. I just feel like Goodfellas should be from the 70s. Clearly it's more. It's not as rough as the 70s movies are, like Taxi Driver and Godfather and even Rocky. This has this, it's just slicker. And I think that's really one of the neat things that you start to see in the 90s. And really, that if you go look at our list for 2020, a lot of those movies could have been, those independent 90 movies. She's in Portland, Miss White Light, First Cow, Let Them All Talk. All these movies could have been 90 movies. Rent-a-Pal.
Which was set in 1990. Right. It's perfect.
But yeah.
Looking ahead at 2020 or 1991, I mean, it's ugly. It's uglier, potentially uglier than 1990. I mean, you have Silence of the Lambs, which will probably dominate most of the year. You've got Terminator 2, Boys in the Hood is coming up in 91, and then a lot of garbage, a whole lot of garbage. We get Barton Fink this year, which is great. We've talked about that movie before. But looking ahead, there is a whole lot of trash in 1991.
When did Tarantino when did I know Reservoir Dogs was 93, 92?
92, I think. So not 91, that's for sure.
When was the one Tony Scott, True Romance, and Natural Born Killers and all? Was that all 91? Or was that 92 as well?
That might be 92. I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head. I've got the list in front of me, and I'm kind of skimming it to try and find the stuff that came out. But when you look at the big name movies on the list, those aren't leaping out at me. I'm looking forward to seeing Hearts of Darkness again. That's one of the great documentaries ever made about Francis Ford Coppola. But you look at your Academy Award movies, everything. Silence of the Lambs dominated everything, but you had in that year Bugsy, JFK came out. Those are two movies that were talked about a lot for reasons. And just a lot of trash in 1991. Really, truly, it's gonna be a rough year. It's going to be rough to watch some of this stuff. The first weekend, just to give you a preview of next week's show, Lionheart, Not Without My Daughter in Ski School. So there you go. There's your 1991 start.
We had a ski movie in 1990.
That's right, we did. Jesus. I don't think there's ever been a good movie about skiing, honestly. I don't think it's ever happened.
No, but I loved watching all of them. That's not true. A lot of times you watch it and you're waiting for the nudity and it never comes.
Which you think is ski school.
Right. The 90s ruined it. Thank you, Nirvana. Next week, we, like you said, Lionheart Ski School, and Now Without My Daughter, but also new movies: Stars Fell on Alabama, One Night in Miami, and I Blame Society. Our classic, because of Not Without My Daughter, is Norma Ray.
You can do a little Sally Field, the second greatest actress of all time.
Yeah, but she stopped, kind of.
She did. Yeah, it did. It is kind of weird. She was also in Forrest Gump, which is takes her down, a few pegs.
I blame the filmmaking, though. Let's see. What time do we got?
Just a reminder about we will have the I Spit on Your Grave Patreon episode. I was sick for much of the first start of 2021, so we didn't get to it as we planned to, but hopefully this weekend it'll be up there.
Yeah, it'll be on Patreon.
More Patreon bonuses to come.
Yeah, and we are streaming live on YouTube, so if you ever want to watch, usually Sunday mornings, but sometimes it'll just surprise us. So if you have the little notification, you'd know we are live right now. And we're still learning. That's why I'm not advertising it much more than this. Yeah. I don't really have much more time, so we got to probably skip Flick Chart for the night, but we will
that's fine.
Definitely get back next week to it and look for that I Spit on Your Grave bonus episode on Patreon. Eventually we'll release that to everybody as well. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.